another day to help stimulate the mental. Time to strategize, huddle up, where's your circle? I can feel the movement radiate through the convo. Talk is cheap, turn your faith into work. I drink my second cup and put my hands in the dirt. 2 cups, drinking straight drip from the earth. Caffeinated conversations, you heard them here first. One for the wake up. One for the wake up. Two for the work. Caffeinated conversations, you heard them here first. Welcome back to 2 Cups Cafe. I am your host, Alan C. Jackson, aka 2 Cups, and who I have joining me for a high-quality caffeinated conversation today is a poet, artist, entrepreneur, teacher, and curator of digital comics. My main man, Imani Lateef. How you doing, brother?
What's up, man? I'm doing good.
You doing good? Man, I'm so delighted that you decided to join me, man, on this podcast today, man. I've been knowing you for some years now, and I just want to tell you I always admired your work ethic, man, and your creativity. And I know a lot of times that don't go together. But you just give us a little give us a little background on yourself, man, how you got into, just a little bit about yourself. I know, like I mentioned, you were an artist, and just how you came up through the ranks.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm lucky to have a career in art as a graphic designer now.
Okay.
I work for the Toledo City paper as a graphic designer and production manager there. So that's my 9 to 5. But ever since I was a kid, me and my brother were both artists. I've always been artists. He's been more fine art.
Okay.
And I've been more in design and illustration.
Okay.
So yeah, ever since we were little, we were always drawing.
So how did that start? Y'all just started drawing on the wall, and your parents was like, "Hey."
You know, it was really funny. So my father, he's a retired Methodist pastor.
Okay.
Tons of books. He has this, every pastor got to study, tons of books. So the older books, if you look through his older books, you'll see like in the first page or 2 of his books, there's scribbles. And that's me.
That's you.
Drawing in his books when I was like, this is like 1 or 2. So ever since then, taking off from there.
So did your parents see something in both of you? Because both of you have like crazy gift, and how they nurture that coming up?
It's been interesting because I posted recently that I'm teaching art classes at the Museum of Art. And when I was meeting with them, I shared with them that ironically, and not just me, but other instructors there, got their start by taking classes in art museums. So I didn't take any here in Toledo.
Okay.
Not the Toledo Art Museum, but I took several in Columbus.
Okay.
When we moved from there to here in Toledo. But yeah, actually, that's how they nurtured it a lot. And I have a lot of stories like that, taking classes at museums and things like that.
Yeah.
Classes in places like YMCAs and stuff. Even have a story of I met a cartoonist at the library that was close to my home in Columbus.
Okay.
And when I would go and visit, there would be a guy, he would just be setting up at a table, drawing comics and cartoons. And I remember vividly seeing him do this work. And crazy enough, I can't think of his name or know if he published anything. I've actually been trying to track this guy down.
Wow.
But all those things, I have a ton of memories like that. Just being not just encouraged to create art, but putting me in the right place to make things.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I know I always enjoy art. I call myself sort of like an art director. Like I can't do art per se, but I know like what's pleasing to my eye. I remember I was the kid at school, man. My handwriting was horrible. I couldn't color in the lines that good. The only time the teacher used to put me and my homeboy Robbie, only time our papers got on the wall was like just for parent-teacher conference. They stick every kid's art up there, and as soon as parent-teacher conference is over, it's coming straight down. My stuff was, maybe it was abstract before its time.
Right. Hey, man. That's how it usually is. We usually start before we're ready.
So I know you say you got more into graphic design, but I mean, you also like, not only can you produce like visual art, but you also have you a wordsmith, so to speak. So where'd that come from? Like,
now that's interesting because what's interesting is like my dad sometimes or my parents wonder like where the artistic element came from because he wasn't necessarily an artist or neither were my parents, but my dad did consider himself to be a poet.
Okay.
Right. And so he still has like little pieces that he wrote like to my mom or things he used to write, like revolutionary actually poetry.
Okay.
And so I think actually I got a lot of that inspiration from him. But like as far as timing goes, you know how it is. I think a few cats just all got the bug around the same time when what was that? Love Jones came out.
Okay. I remember that.
After watching that, I said, "Man, I could do that." You know what I'm saying?
I'm about to write some stuff.
I got some lines. I could spit at a couple people. No, I think it was around that time, but I think there was some moments too, just like with the arts. I think there were some moments in my classes. I took honors English courses. Okay. And then reading some classic poems in my classes inspired me to write too. Yeah. But definitely I wish I had to admit that, the main spark was Love Jones and all that stuff.
Because at one point, then you had like a group, like a collective of poets.
Yeah. The New Mutants.
That's what it was called?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
It was like around that height where slam poetry was hot. You remember that movie Slam?
Yep.
So we were, competing or traveling around, not just around the Midwest. Actually got to meet some really talented folks that are still out here in the game. But it was interesting that early 2000s, that was a really interesting time for poetry and stuff.
For sure. Mm-hmm. So when you were and you, like I say, you're an entrepreneur too, and around those times, eventually you even opened up your own like spot and venue where you showcase like all different types of talent, whether it had been like singing or rapping or poetry. In your coffee shop, man. I remember I used to really enjoy that. So what was the spark of that? Was it more so the business or was it the expression?
I learned so much out of that space. It started off with the expression. Okay. Because before we had a space, me and members of the group, we were actually putting together a business plan. We wanted to open the space. Okay. And because we just saw this opportunity to have a space where people could come and, hear music and poetry and all that kind of stuff, we wanted to create a classic coffee house experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Our business plan we solidified the plan, but we never launched it. Okay. But then a friend of mine, Jesse Lippman, he came back to Ohio from Hawaii, actually. Okay. And he happened to be a slam poet out there.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that about him.
And so when he came back in town, he wanted to open up a spot. Okay. So I was like, well, we already got a plan. Hey, we just came together, and that's how that pretty much came to be.
Yeah. So you say you learned a bunch about what, just business, about...
Yeah. Like, we love poetry. We don't necessarily love coffee like that. I mean, it was so wild. Like, I just assumed, like, oh, yeah, we get the coffee. Everybody, we're going to be, running out the door with coffee. Like, nah, this ain't sweet enough.
They like to hang out.
We had the espresso machine. We were trained on it, man. I was a barista, a certified barista. Man, it was just like every time I made a latte, it was like, oh no, we gotta add more sugar.
Oh man,
it wasn't sweet enough.
So they didn't appreciate the straight drip of the bean.
Nah. And then, like, in hindsight, I said, man, I should have been like a juice bar or something.
Juice bar? Yeah.
If I had to do it over again, that's probably what I would do.
Okay.
The business side of it.
Right.
The poetry side, like you when you came, you saw it. Like the entertainment side, oh yeah, we would be packed out the door.
Right.
We would always, like, whenever we did an event, poetry slams, we did open mics, we did Christian open mics.
Right.
We did all kinds of stuff out of there. And like whenever we did that stuff,
It's out the door.
it was out the door. But the business side of what to sell and all that kind of stuff, that was the hard part.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I found in my endeavors, man, I have like a passion or idea about something, and I'm the type of guy, I just used to just jump off the ledge, but I've learned so much over the years, how to approach, business and at least be able to pay the bills, you know what I mean? So that's the big part. But man, I mean, so you have such a wealth of knowledge, man. I mean, when I met you like years ago, one thing that impressed me about you is like you had this presence. I mean, you was conscious a little bit before everybody started using that word. You know what I'm saying? And when I would talk to you, man, you used to be so like, you was slow to like answer questions. And I'm like, this dude just take his time and just let me think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
And then like, where'd that come from? Like, was it the hip hop that influenced? Was it just a sign of the times? Like you said, was it your dad?
That's a good question. Like around the time we met, I had to coming out of college for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think college is where I learned to have, good conversations.
Okay.
Or really enjoy good conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy listening to conversations and learning stuff from folks. I think that's where a lot of that came from.
Okay.
Because that's where a lot, that's one of the few spaces where you actually have to humble yourself and learn up under someone, whether it's a professor or someone you idolize. You usually sit, that age, like you wanted to soak some information in.
You wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just that wanting to learn is continued. So whenever I get the opportunity to learn, like I always take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I mean, we started kind of like conversating back in the day, and what was unique at that time, before all this technology came out, you were kind of the one that was formatting and knew how to make books and things like that. And so I know like now a lot of people may not be aware, but it's a space that you kind of expert in digital comics. And so is Junebug, is that your creation or?
Yeah.
So how did that curating comics come about? Because I know you have your own artistic expression, but now it seems like when I watch you or I follow you, it's like you kind of promote others as well, and even have a space to where people could kind of learn more about that genre.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, there was a book. There was an author that came out. It was called 365. I think, what was it called? 365 Days Black.
Okay.
And basically what the woman did was, it was this book, and she decided that she was going to buy black for a year.
Okay.
365 days. And that means she was going to buy her food from black folks, her groceries from black folks, gas, whatever. She tried to create an environment so that every dollar she spent, she was spending with a black business owner.
Okay.
Right. And she did all these creative things where she would buy gift cards from McDonald's, from the black McDonald's, that she could spend at any McDonald's, but she had made a
conscious purchase to grab
with the black owner.
Okay.
This is out of Chicago.
Okay.
And then she would try to find a black grocery store chain or order stuff like detergent online from black business owners, and that idea inspired me because I was wondering like, what can I do like that?
Okay.
And what's interesting about comics is that people that collect or read comic books, we do that weekly.
Right, okay.
We show up every week, every Wednesday, to buy our comics. And I was thinking, like, it'd be cool if...
So that's when the comic books drops on Wednesday?
Yeah, yeah. Wednesday is New Comic Book Day.
Okay.
And so I was like, what if I consciously buy a black comic every Wednesday for, the 52 weeks out of the year or whatever. And that's where it started, because it was so hard to get my hands on a black comic. So I thought, well, if I could bring it on in one place, then every week I could, support a black comic book creator every week. So that's how it grew to, like, I was looking for at least 50-some books. And then we had, like, 100-some and more publishers. So that's how that ball started rolling.
So did you start, like, fostering relationship with the other creators? Or Okay.
A lot of independent publishers. It's been like a 10-year window. So a lot of the people that I started with, you'd be amazed at what they're doing now. They're really taking off. So that's how, about 10 years.
Yeah, and then you also, I saw, like, not only do you create, but then you have the ability to teach. So tell me a little bit about, I know you say you got started at art museums and stuff. So tell me where that passion comes to show others how to do kind of what you're doing.
It's interesting. We had I wanted to talk about, we had did like a book club a while ago.
Yeah.
And what was interesting, we read Sinek's Find Your Why.
Right.
And so we read the book, and we went through that process of each of us finding our why.
Yes.
That's a popular term. I'm not sure if anybody realizes it comes from a book. But what I learned is, like, I am an artist, but that's not why I do it. So I realized once I learned that from the book, that the reason why I enjoy art is because I like to serve. Okay. Or be of service to folks.
Yeah.
And once I realized that, it became clear what I need, or how I should handle business. It's sort of like, so the art is a means to an end.
Okay.
So I want to be of service to children, or I think that is somewhat of a calling, and art is a way that I provide that.
Yeah.
And once I realized that's the, like, core of everything that I do, it's been really interesting, like, making those connections with different institutions. It's been extremely easy compared to other businesses I've been in.
Right, right.
It's sort of like, once I realized it's like, well, I'm here to serve, then I'm like I'm teaching classes at the Museum of Art. I've taught classes at the library. I've taught classes at Art Supply Depot. I've taught classes in Toledo Public Schools. It's like, it became...
Then I know we were talking earlier, and how you taught or teach class at even like juvenile detention.
Yeah, there's a organization, Youth Arts Alliance, out of Michigan. Me and my brother, we teach art classes and workshops out of a detention center up in Monroe. But they have programs throughout, Southeast Michigan. So,
yeah.
So
you say, like, making those connections and finding these different organizations. You feel like once you, like, identified your why, it seemed like it was easy to.
It seemed like they just came to me all of a sudden. It's like, it became an extremely easy fit. It's like, I knew I'm here to help serve these kids.
Right.
And they're working with you guys with Art Tatum's on.
Yes.
Like, been doing that practically every summer. Like,
yeah.
But it's like, it was such an easy marriage once I realized why I was doing all these things. I wasn't just drawing or creating art just to be creating art. I had a purpose.
So was there a frustration before? Like, was it like a tension between? Because I know, like, being a creator or creative, sometimes you know, like you say, you like to serve, but sometimes people just want you to produce. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, and then a lot of times they don't value the process.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say, hey, you know, I want a logo, or hey, I want, you know, or your brother, hey, paint me this, or design me that, and it's like, was it difficult to put hard value on your expertise, or you kind of found what the rate is, or how you navigate that?
I think once I found my reason why I was doing what I was doing, it made it just as easy to find my value.
Okay.
Because we've all been, I think everybody in this room, we've been working in the design field for a while.
Right.
Or working freelance work, and the biggest obstacle is our personal value.
Right.
Having to go head to head with folks. It's like, this is the price. No, I can't give you a discount. No, this is the price. I've been doing this for yada yada. You know what I mean? You gotta fight constantly. This is before you even do the work, and then the work is an uphill battle. Even after that. But it was something about once I figured out why I was doing it.
Yeah.
It was like then I learned after I did my first class, I took that as that's my base. Okay, this is the number.
Okay.
And then every time I walked in the door and said, hello, I do X, Y, and Z. I teach comic book classes, workshops, and this is the number. Okay, great. Then, here's the paperwork. And it was like...
Ain't haggle or nothing.
Nothing. It was like, but it was something about, I don't know if it was something about the fact that understanding why I was doing it provided a level of confidence that I might not have had before. Even though my resume, my resume was solid before. Right. But that whole, it was just being in the room with different folks, Now it's sort of like, I think knowing my purpose helped me to gravitate towards folks that are about the same thing.
They're more service driven.
Right. And it's sort of like, so it's not much of a haggle because we all want working towards the same goal.
Okay.
So, so as far as business-wise, I love this space compared to all that other stuff.
Right.
I try to steer clear of all that.
For sure. Can you share with me any like big aha moments you've got from teaching the young teenagers, children, or whatever? Like, I know you see like raw talent, or you might see somebody that may not be obviously talented, but through the teaching process, maybe they're able to, uncover some and get to that, oh, wow, this is really coming together.
I learned pretty quickly because one of the main things I do is teach. It's like I'm teaching storytelling when I teach comic books.
Okay.
So like sequential art is the art of, telling the story visually.
Yeah.
And so many of the kids that I meet have their own stories already.
Yeah.
They've been telling these stories for, years before they even meet me.
Okay.
So I realized that I wasn't there to teach them how to draw anything in particular, like how to draw hands or feet and all that kind of stuff. It was just sort of like, I've been teaching them how to finish.
Okay.
Like to tell a story from, start, middle, end, creating, maybe small projects, but at least they finish and they go home with something.
Right.
With their original character or whatever it is they, been dreaming up for years.
So you teach more than the art process. You teach the storytelling and the do you do the character development too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Giving them the opportunity to share.
Yeah.
And what I found is like most of the time they enjoy the sharing part more than anything because for the first time for a lot of these kids, like this is the first time they were around other creative kids.
Okay.
So like 50% of the time is actually them socializing.
Okay.
More than actually creating art, because it's like now it's one of the things I enjoy the most is like when they meet each other, it's almost like they've met family for the first time. Like it's just like, oh my God, they don't
like you get me.
Yeah. Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
So have you ever had any, so in this process, like I know like I deal with like youth that have had trauma and obviously, you teach at at a detention center, but sometimes it doesn't have to be in those environments. But have you ever encountered like in the storytellings and in the characters some things that kind of like had to go into a more therapeutic approach, or you had to get somebody else involved or make somebody aware of anything like that?
You know, it's interesting when you don't realize how much you take for granted until you go into a space like that. One of the first projects I did was I told all the kids, okay, guys, tell me a story about home. And immediately one of the kids was like, well, I don't have a home.
Oh, wow, okay.
Or like, I don't have a good home.
Right.
On my situation. You know what I mean? And it just occurred to me, it's like, I had just taken for granted that like, they didn't want to be there, and I was looking for some type of happy story. And my first assumption is that home is a
safe place.
It's a safe place.
Yeah.
And for some of those kids, the home wasn't a safe space. And so I had to flip it like, well, imagine what a good home would be like.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't tell me about the home that you have. Tell me about the home that you possibly dream of.
Right.
Or, not the worst case scenario. Tell me about the best case scenario.
Yeah, for sure.
But then it sort of made me more mindful of things like that, not to be so quick to assume that, or like the fact that, like we were talking about earlier, it's like when I first started, I felt sad that those kids were there.
Right.
So you go in, with not necessarily a negative attitude, but with this attitude, like, it's like, oh,
they got them in the system.
Yeah. You start pitying them. It's like, oh, don't, they got all these rules and discipline. And then after doing these workshops for several years, I was starting to see kids 2 or 3 times. And then it occurred to me like, oh no, like this is the best place for them. Like it's better for them to be here than their situation at home.
Right.
So as much as I would, to a degree, hate to see them there.
Right.
Then I got to the point where it's like, well, no, I'm happy to see you.
Right. Happy to see that you're alive, you safe, you warm, you
all
fed,
that stuff, all that stuff. And it's like, so like, the second time around, in certain cases, it's like, it felt bad, but then at the same time, it's like, well, no, at least they have some place, to go.
For sure.
You would hate that it has to be through the court system and all this kind of stuff, but it was just, I just became happier to see them in a safe place.
Yeah, for sure.
And not just me, but the staff there. Like, to the point where, they were familiar with the staff, and the staff have had relationships with some of these kids for years.
Right.
So, I've been learning to value those relationships and those connections more, rather than like, oh no, this is the CEO.
Right.
And no, it's like this relationship actually is probably a lot deeper than that.
Right. Like you said, it gets to the point where it's more like that familiarity, that family feel, even though it's not the best circumstance.
No, right.
But those people that really care about, their job and care about their children, they may have a big impact on their lives. I mean, I'm in and out of juvenile court, weekly. And, I get stories from some of the young men that I interact with, and they always talk about, they go, that's Officer so-and-so. And maybe a former PO might come up to them and ask them some questions. You could just see their face light up, like almost like seeing, an aunt or an uncle or something like that. So I definitely get where you're coming from with that, man. So, this is 2 Cups Cafe, man. I call it one for the wake, one for the work. The wake is, when I get up in the morning, I have that first cup, I just kind of meditate, and that's my wake, like meditation, big dreaming, what big ideas, what gets me up in the morning. We always talk about what keeps people up at night, but no, what's getting you up in the morning, what you're looking forward to, not necessarily the job you have to do, but what's inspiring you. And then the other one is for the work. That's that what steps am I taking to get closer to that identified inspiration that I have. So I just want to ask you, you know, you got any big things that's waking you up in the morning? Like what's getting your juices going?
Okay. So like I was saying, I'm about to teach art classes at the museum.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been taking like a ton of notes of how I want to like approach the classes.
Okay.
I'm teaching like at the end of January, teaching kids. And then in around February, I'm teaching adults.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out all these different projects. Like I've done this before at the art museum, and I want to like, okay, where can I change stuff up, make it more interactive? So that's been what I've been trying to. That's one of the things that I've been using this time between now and January to sort of piece together my lesson plan and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Man.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So do you still do you still write? Like, are you writing curriculum, or are you like it's more so for just your teaching notes for those particular classes?
like I do several things. Like I actually have a workbook that I made.
Okay. Yeah.
So like I use projects out of my workbook. And then also there's several different hands-on projects that I introduce to the kids. But there's some newer ones that I want to be able to definitely show the adults.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like I have like a base workbook that I work out of.
Okay.
And then I like build from there.
So what's easier to do, like teach adults or to teach children?
It depends on the age range with the kids.
Okay.
It's weird. Like it's harder to teach the teenage area, and it's hard to teach the like 10 and under.
Okay.
So I learned like the sweet spot is the like 11 or 12 to 13, 14.
Okay. Before they know it all, I guess.
Yeah. It's just something about it. It's like they just, because the thing about comics in particular is that there's no way around the work and the time. You got to be able to sit there and pay attention and do the work.
Okay.
And when they're younger, everything has to be fast. So they gotta keep moving.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and when the teenagers are sort of like that, they're just really super impatient.
Okay.
So it's like that middle area. That's usually a pretty good sweet spot.
Wow. Okay.
Where they don't mind sitting, you know, and they enjoy the process.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually adults who typically take the class, they enjoy the process too. They don't mind the slow pace.
Okay.
So you can actually take more time and actually work through different parts of the process a lot better.
Okay. So do you have any aspirations to start your own art studio space again, or is this more so you enjoy the teaching like at the different organizations?
I just recently got a grant from the county.
Okay.
And what I wanted to use a part of those funds was towards like publishing a magazine.
Okay.
I've always had a dream of like publishing like, you know, those kids magazines like Highlights.
Yeah, I remember Highlights.
I wanted to do like a comic book version of that with Junebug. That was the whole idea. It was like I not just put comics in it, but like games and stories and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So that's you being able to use that tool to not go into schools and stuff like that, but also in the libraries and other institutions.
So Junebug is he's a digital comic, but you also have the paper the paperback ones.
I have published a comic and I want to publish another one. But it's something like recently I started publishing a web comic every week that comes out on Sunday.
Okay.
And then like I do another one that comes out every couple of days. Like it's just like 3 or 4 panel comic strip.
Yeah.
And then so I do that online.
So the comics, do they have like a specific, like historically a specific template of, you know, you got the hero, you got the conflict, you got the resolution. Like, do they all like kind of fall into that, or you think it can take, you know, various twists and turns?
They can take all kind of turns. It's not just about superheroes. I've been actually doing like a lot of research about comic books historically.
Okay.
And so what's interesting about African Americans in comics is that we have been a part of every aspect of comic books from the very first comic book.
Wow, okay.
So the very first comic book starred a black man. Okay. And then some of the first comic book illustrators, like Matt Baker, were black.
Okay.
And then so every era of comic books has had us in it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and those stories vary from actually superhero comics is very
It's newer.
Is a newer part of the tradition in.
I thought did comics start with like detective stories, or was it that was even further back than that?
It was a lot of a lot of comics historically have been very popular in the military, so there's a lot of military stories.
Okay.
A lot of the early illustrators were also illustrators and writers.
Okay.
So a lot of romance.
Romance comics?
A lot of romance comics.
Okay.
Some of the most valuable comics are those romance comics. And they used to do a lot of like, you ever see like jungle action or stuff that happened, like Tarzan?
Okay, yeah.
There's a ton of, that's where like the early stories were like stories like that. And a lot of those illustrators happen to be black.
That's interesting, man. Like, I got my first introduction to comics, like, DC, Superman, then, the early X-Men.
The X-Men, yeah.
Like when Beast he was like a dude with big feet.
Right.
Before he got blue.
Yeah.
So that was my introduction to comics back then, man. I used to read them, the 7-Elevens and stuff like that. Just grab a comic and grab me a Word Up magazine.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like my little 1-2 was I was introduced to like hip hop and comic books around the same time. But obviously, like throughout, I didn't have the history or the why of those stories. But man, just talking to you about that is really interesting.
Oh yeah, like that's another thing I've been doing. I also have another website called Black Comics Universe.
Okay.
Where like I pick different comic book keys or black keys and share the history of that book.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I pick comics from every era and I share like the history behind it.
Wow.
Some of the value of some of those books. I consider myself a collector of historically black comics.
Okay.
So some of those books that are important to me aren't necessarily important to every collector, but they have value for me historically. Yeah.
Man, I like that, man. I mean, it seems like you're doing your due diligence on that, man, and I just want to commend you for that because I think a lot of times people look past like what they're passionate about and just try to find out where they can make some money, how they can monetize everything,
Right.
But what I admire about you is it's like it doesn't seem as if the monetization is first. You more want to get out the information and the joy of the genre of whatever it is, whether it's writing, whether it's the comics. I mean, I know your wife; she's a wonderful musician and a voice, and just I've seen you like, kind of producing and helping with that type of stuff, man. So I just want to say, I commend you for that.
No, I appreciate it.
The monetization before the art, and I know a lot in this day and time we live in. It's like if you're not making money at it, it's like people say, why are you doing it? But they don't understand that the process and the love over time, that's what's going to bring you the real value in the end. So
right, yeah, exactly.
Man. Yeah, man. So anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Nope. You can find where I'm teaching classes and information at junebugsworld.com. That's JOON bugsworld.com.
Yeah.
You can see all my web comics and get information about where I'll be.
That's dope, man. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on 2 Cups Cafe, man. I'm just tell everybody that man, to like, subscribe. Even you guys out there, like, subscribe. We just having high quality caffeinated conversations. We talk about a myriad of topics and just glean from life experience of those that have done the work They done the wake, and now they doing the work. Until next time, man, I just want to just say thank you for always just tuning in with us. Until next time, it's Alan Jackson, 2 Cups. We got to fix that. Until next time, man, 2 Cups.